P2000, I'm back at you with another video. Yes, welcome back to Leather Chambers Kaiju Reviews on behalf of Summit Kaiju, on behalf of Collect All Monsters. And I'm back again with another round of these awesome books, these awesome, spectacular visual movie books. Yes, yes, yes. The Toho Special Effects Movies Authentic Visual Books. I've done a few of these videos before on my channel. Yes, devoted to certain kaiju of the tokusatsu universe. I've done Megalon and Jet Jaguar, Mechagodzilla 75 and Titanosaurus, the 91 Godzilla and 91 King Ghidorah / Mecha King Ghidorah. And today I'm tackling the books devoted to Toho's take on the Frankenstein character. Yes, yes, yes. With volume number 47, devoted to Toho's Frankenstein's Monster from 1965's Frankenstein Conquers the World, and volume number 28, the unofficial sequel to that awesome film, with Frankenstein's Monsters Sanda versus Gaira, also known as the War of the Gargantuas, volume number 28. Yes, yes, yes. Let me just tell you, these books are awesome. Now, if you want to know more about where you can get these books and all that good stuff, please check out my Gabara/Hedra book review, and you get all the information where you can find these books, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to rehash that in this video, you know, whatever. Basically, we could just be doing what I normally do in these videos, where I select 3 random photographs from each book in the hopes to sell you on why you should have these books in your collection, because they are just awesome. Yes, yes, yes. Let me just tell you, I love both these films. I love Frankenstein Conquers the World. I love War of the Gargantuas. I love War of the Gargantuas more, and I'll talk about that later on. But these books are great, 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 great films, and they're great alternatives to the Godzilla film universe. And I've said this many times before, as Kaiju fans, once you dive deep into the genre or into the hobby or into the movies or whatever, I know sometimes you may get Godzilla or Gamera fatigue, where if you want to see a giant monster movie, you know, you want to see something else besides Godzilla and besides Gamera and or Ultraman. That happens, you know what I'm saying? And I think these two films are the best alternatives from Toho that you will ever find. Frankenstein Conquers the World, as well as War of the Gargantuas. You see what I'm saying? So without further ado, let's dive head first into the first book we're going to talk about, which is volume number 47. It just got released recently. I think when I want to say it came out, I want to say either June. I think June or July, 1 or 2. It's fairly recent, you know. But yes, volume number 47, devoted to Toho's Frankenstein's Monster. And let's just dive into that right fast before we go into the pictures. In the book, they call it Frankenstein's Monster, but in the film, they refer to him as Frankenstein. And you know what? That's a debate. You know, some fans refer to him as Frankenstein's Monster. Some fans call him Frankenstein. It just depends on which fan you talk to. I'm fine with either way, but me personally, when I see the film or when I talk about the kaiju from the film, I always refer to him as Frankenstein. Rarely do I ever call him the Frankenstein's Monster, even though I know a debate or an argument can be made on why he should be called either one. The reason why I call him Frankenstein's Monster, because since he's the creation of Dr. Frankenstein in a lot of respects, he basically adopted his name, so just call him Frankenstein. But at the same time, I understand why some people would call him Frankenstein's Monster. Either way is fine with me. So without further ado, let's dive head first in the awesome photograph I'm going to show you right here. And yes, as you can see here, this is a close-up photograph of Frankenstein. You see what I'm saying? And the actor who portrayed Frankenstein. I believe his name is Koji Furuhata. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name. But in addition to these awesome books having great, great, pristine, crisp, and just super clear photographs of these monsters or these kaiju or these characters, they also offer a tidbit of information involving the character. They may involve the person who was inside the suit of the monster. They may involve like shooting locations or where they shot the movie, or they may showcase or at least give some tidbit information of the origin of the character. And in this book in particular, they go into a little detail, just a little bit of the actor behind Frankenstein here. And there's not much to know about this character. Once again, his name is Koji Furuhata, and I want to credit Steve Serajoli on a Fresh Round on Live episode that he did a while back, and he actually talks about the actor just a little bit behind Frankenstein. And apparently Frankenstein was his last role for as an actor, and then after that, he just became a recluse, and I think he went off into the mountains or whatever, and just chose to live in a world of isolation. He didn't want to have anything to do with the outside world. That's why there's not been a lot of Frankenstein figures of him, because since the actor was basically had makeup applied to his own facial features, I think he had final say so about, you know, whether figures could be made of him and of his likeness. He was behind a big bulky monster suit where he had no say so. But since the makeup was applied to his own facial features, he had the final say so about whether a figure or products can be made of his likeness. And I think for a while, I think he wanted nothing to do with that, quite frankly. Until he passed away. I think he passed away a couple of years ago, and the family, you know, basically said, okay, you know, since he's passed on now, you know, you can have the rights or you can have permission to make Frankenstein figures. That's why we got the X Plus version of Frankenstein here, as you see right here in the forefront, and they've done a Bandai version. They've done a few Frankenstein figures before these two came up. Maybe they're unofficial, I don't know. But that's the main reason behind it. But in the book, they talk about just a little bit that he had, like, I think, an ear infection, which prohibited him to speak properly. And after that, he just chose not to be an actor anymore. And it's very ironic when you think about, you know, his last role, which was Frankenstein, a monster that was, you know, chose basically to live up in the mountains and chose to be in isolation and not want anything to do with the outside world. Basically, he kind of lived his life. The actor behind the character kind of lived his life the same way. So it's kind of a tragic, ironic twist if you really think about it. That really, you know, it was really art imitating life, or life imitating art. You know, so I found that to be very, very fascinating. But once again, the man behind Frankenstein did an awesome job as Frankenstein. He did a great job evoking emotion, and just you feel sorry for this character. It's really a tragic situation involving the character, and it's such a shame that it kind of like mimicked what happened to him in real life. But that's pretty much it with the first photograph I wanted to show you. So without further ado, let's dive head first into the second photograph of this awesome book that I want to show you right here. Okay, folks, here we are with the second photograph, and yes, you see here three of the principal protagonists from this film of Frankenstein Conquers the World, with the American doctor, Dr. Bowen, played by the awesome Nick Adams, fresh off his appearance in the other great Toho Kaiju film coming out this year, Invasion of Astro Monster, also known as Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, and you have Sawako, his assistant. Kumi Mizuno, once again, fresh off her appearance in that same film of 1965 from Toho, Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, and you have Tadao Takashima playing Dr. Kawaji. And for those who don't know who he is, he was the head doctor or head scientist in Son of Godzilla. He also was, I think he was a reporter, or he worked for the pharmaceutical company in King Kong vs. Godzilla, and he was the one along with Kenji Sahara in the helicopter watching Godzilla battle King Kong on the slopes of Mount Fuji. But that's one of the things that I really appreciate more about this film versus War of the Gargantuas. Now, between the two films, I prefer War of the Gargantuas, but I think the characters are stronger here in this film. You see what I'm saying? Even when you see like Dr. Kawaji and his motivations of wanting to hunt Frankenstein down, you know, you kind of get the sense that, yeah, he's kind of like going a little bit too far, but you know he cares about what he's doing. He wants to know more about Frankenstein from a scientific point of view, versus Kenji Sahara, who plays somewhat of a similar character in War of the Gargantuas. It just seems like he's just there. It just seems like he's really kind of playing off Russ Tamblin's lame appearance or lame portrayal of his character. More on that later on. So you get more behind Dr. Kawaji, and you feel more about his character, and that, you know, he wants to learn more about Frankenstein, not to save Frankenstein per se, but trying to learn more about him from a scientific point of view. Then you have Dr. Bowen, played by Nick Adams, the awesome Nick Adams. And that's one of the things that I wish that we could have seen in War of the Gargantuas. I just wish that Nick Adams would have played Dr. Stewart in War of the Gargantuas, because when you compare Russ Tamblin's performance and Nick Adams' performance, is clearly night and day. They are both different. Nick Adams portrays his character with so much enthusiasm, and you care about his character. He seems like he really wants to be there. Versus Russ Tamblyn, you can tell he has a lame performance. I have no way to really describe it other than that. I know recently he has come around on the film, because for years he was ashamed to be a part of that film. But when you look at his film performance in War of the Gargantuas, you can really clearly tell he does not want to be there. But you don't get that from Nick Adams in Frankenstein Conquers the World. Now, as far as Kimi Mizuno, she pretty much plays the same type of character role in both films, even though she plays different characters in both roles. But you can tell that she really cares about the monsters in both films. She cares about Frankenstein to a great degree in 1965, and she cares a great deal about Sanda in the following year. You see what I'm saying? But that's one thing I will positively say that this film, the Frankenstein Conquers the World film, has over the War of the Gargantuas, that the characters are stronger. You feel more for them. You get that motivation, whereas in War of the Gargantuas, you really don't get that type of sense. You understand what I'm saying? So that's pretty much it with the second photograph. You know, with the characters here looking at Frankenstein's severed hand, and that comes to their conclusion that basically what the monster that they had in their captivity was in fact truly Frankenstein, which was a great scene. So without further ado, let's dive head first into the final photograph I'm going to showcase from this book. Okay, folks, this is the final photograph, and yes, you see the two monsters battling out. And it's also filmed in Frankenstein Conquers the World, originally called Frankenstein versus Baragon. So basically, this is what you see here: Frankenstein versus Baragon, and this was Baragon's basically first appearance in a kaiju film. And actually, you know what? I have to say this: that is one of the reasons why I kind of favor War of the Gargantuas more than this film, because there's never really a good reason to explain why Baragon is in this film. He doesn't have any type of connections to Frankenstein. That's one thing I love about War of the Gargantuas. The Gargantuas are pretty much connected to each other. Sanda and Gaira have a connection to each other. But in here, Baragon just appears out of nowhere. And it just comes across more so as like, this is around the time where pretty much every monster film had a monster brawl or a monster fight, right? So it comes across more so like Baragon was put into this film because Frankenstein needed something to fight. Now, at first, they originally wanted to do a Frankenstein versus Godzilla film. Yes, that was a plan at one point. They wanted to do a Godzilla versus Frankenstein film. But that kind of fell through, so they chose Mothra as Godzilla next opponent during that planning stage. So that's how we ended up getting Mothra versus Godzilla. So when they finally came around to Frankenstein Conquers the World, they ended up making this monster called Baragon, which was a subterranean dinosaur with the horn on his head that lights up, and he also can like blow like a fire breath attack, which was kind of left over from the planned Frankenstein versus Godzilla proposed film that they were going to do. And in this film, they don't really have a connection with each other. Basically, Baragon appears out of nowhere, destroying the countryside, destroying farmlands in the same area where Frankenstein has pretty much been spotted in. So when Baragon comes in and does his thing, he does his thing and disappears. So nobody really sees Baragon for a good part of the film. At least anybody as far as like the film's protagonist. They don't really know that Baragon is out there. You see what I'm saying? Except for one person. So for a lot of the movie, Frankenstein gets blamed for all the stuff that Baragon does. But when the protagonists go and look for Frankenstein at the climax of the film, Baragon appears out of nowhere and comes across them, which brings in Frankenstein to fight Baragon, and that's why we have this awesome fight of Frankenstein versus Baragon, which is really an awesome fight. You know, you have the speed and the agility and the quickness of Frankenstein with the slow, just, you know, bigger Baragon. But there are times where Baragon can be quick too. He could jump out of nowhere and spring forward out of nowhere. He could be very vicious. You know, Baragon can be very vicious. And it really is a great fight. Between the two fight scenes between War of the Gargantuas and this film, I kind of overlooked this fight in favor of the Gargantuas fight scene, and that's a bummer. But at the same time, Frankenstein versus Baragon is an awesome fight scene. It really is an awesome fight scene. They have two fight scenes in the film, and it's something not to be overlooked. It really is an awesome fight scene, which leads to a great climatic moment in the film. So that's pretty much all I want to show you with the Frankenstein book. Once again, if you're a fan of this film, Frankenstein Conquers the World, or if you're a fan of this monster, please go after this book. And once again, there's not much out there in terms of the Toho Frankenstein. That's one of the main reasons why I got this book in the first place. Not only do I love the film, but there's not much out there in terms of this monster here. So trust me, if you're a fan of this monster and or this film, please get your hands on this book. You will not be disappointed with, yes, volume number 47, devoted to Toho's Frankenstein's Monster for Frankenstein Conquers the World. So now let's go over to volume number 28. Yes! Volume number 28, yes, my second favorite kaiju film, devoted to the awesome kaiju in this film, Sanda and Gaira, from 1966, Frankenstein's Monsters Sanda vs. Gaira, better yet known as the War of the Gargantuas. Once again, I so love this film. If you've been watching me for God knows how long, and plus I got the shirt thanks to Robo7, you already know I so love this film. So love this film. I really do. When I first saw this film, I really didn't know what to make of it, quite frankly. Because that was when I was kind of early in learning more about Godzilla, you know. So when I saw this film and I saw the special effects work, and I saw the miniatures, and I saw the suit actors, and I saw certain characters, or at least actors that I've seen in other Godzilla films, I was just waiting for Godzilla to show up, you see what I'm saying? Because I knew that Toho, or at least the people behind Godzilla, made this film. So while I'm watching the movie, I'm thinking, okay, it's fun to see the green guy and the brown guy, but I'm like, okay, where's Godzilla? He got to show up at some point, but he never does. But you know what? This film is great on its own, that it doesn't need Godzilla. Yes, it is that great. So if you're not seeing this film, my God, what's wrong with you? But yeah, this basically is an unofficial sequel to Frankenstein Conquers the World. But at the same time, when they brought over here to the United States, they renamed the monsters, at least the film, Gargantuas, otherwise known as the War of the Gargantuas. And the reason behind that is basically the American distributors felt like that Sanda and Gaira didn't really look too much like Frankenstein, because in the original Japanese cut of the film, basically Sanda and Gaira are the spawn of Frankenstein from the previous film, or the previous year. You see what I'm saying? They're basically just offshoots or offsprings from the original Frankenstein. So basically, Frankenstein was the original monster, Sanda was the offshoot from Frankenstein, and Gaira was the offshoot of Sanda. You see what I'm saying? That's how they basically really explained their origin in the Japanese cut of the film. You see what I'm saying? But in the American cut, they referred to the monsters as brothers. And even though I am more of aware of the origin, where basically Gaira is basically a watery clone of Sanda, I actually prefer them being brothers. You see what I'm saying? Which makes their fallout even much more tragic. You see what I'm saying? But I can talk about this film all day long. As a matter of fact, I might do a deep dive into it at some point later on. But let's go into the book itself. Yeah, this is an awesome book, yes. And let's dive into the first photograph on the showcase from this awesome book of Sanda vs. Gaira. And yes, you see this photograph of Gaira attacking the ship. Once again, it's a great opening of the film. This film doesn't waste time with the kaiju action. Sometimes, you know, when you watch kaiju films, they take a long time building up the monster, or it takes a long time for the monster to appear on screen. But in the opening scene, before the credits even roll, you see basically the villain monster, the evil monster battling the octopus. And to me, that's another fan theory that I think about every now and then, especially when I watch the opening of this film. Because in the previous film, Frankenstein Conquers the World, we all know that Frankenstein fights Baragon, and Earthquake comes in after Frankenstein kills, or basically breaks, Baragon's neck, and Frankenstein is victorious. Earthquake comes in, opens the earth up underneath Frankenstein and Baragon, and basically swallows both monsters up. And you think that Frankenstein is gone after that. But there's an international cut of the film where after Frankenstein dispatches Baragon, he gets attacked by an octopus, and the octopus just drags him into the a nearby lake, and the movie ends, right? And you assume that basically Frankenstein drowns. But in this film, it opens with the octopus attacking the ship, and therefore it brings in Gaira, who attacks the octopus. Now, in my mind, every now and then I think about, you know, because there's speculation whether the original Frankenstein is either Sanda or Gaira in this film. And it's fun to think about that. But to me, you can make the argument that if Sanda, or at least if the original Frankenstein was one of the Gargantuas. Because think about it, both Gargantuas have traits from the original Frankenstein. Like the original Frankenstein, like Sanda. Sanda, you know, is very friendly towards humans, or at least he's tolerable of them. He lives off at the mountains by himself like Frankenstein. He wants to be left alone. At the same time, Gaira is like the original Frankenstein too, where Frankenstein, he can live underwater for long periods of time. He's a carnivore. He loves eating meat and flesh. So both Gargantuas have traits of the original Frankenstein. Now, you got to wonder where Gaira came from. Once again, I mentioned earlier that Gaira is basically an offspring of Sanda. But if you watch the international cut of Frankenstein Conquers the World, you kind of can make the argument that maybe after the octopus drags Frankenstein into the water, and maybe Frankenstein somehow gets mutated and he becomes the Green Gargantua, and he sees the octopus in the opening of War of the Gargantuas, and he's trying to get payback. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Maybe Frankenstein is Gaira here. You see what I'm saying? Maybe at this point, he's like, you know what? I love eating meat. I love eating flesh, and he attacks humanity. And maybe he feels like, you know what? Humanity in the last film didn't do me no favors. They hunted me down. They treat me like crap. So I'm gonna hunt down humans. Maybe his attitude towards humanity has turned around. Maybe he has turned heel. You see what I'm saying? So you can make the argument that maybe Frankenstein is Gaira, but once again, I know in the Japanese original cut of the film, both Sanda and Gaira are basically the spawns of Frankenstein. But it's kind of fun to have that kind of fan theory. But in this opening shot of the film, once again, such an opening shot of the film where you see the ship get attacked by the octopus, then the Green Gargantua comes in and saves the ship momentarily. You think that the fishermen are going to be okay. Then Gaira turns around and then starts sinking the ship before the credits even roll. Once again, such an awesome opening scene to this awesome film. Yes, yes, yes. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say involving this awesome photograph right here. So without further ado, let's go into the next photograph I'm going to show from this awesome book of Sanda vs. Gaira. And in this photograph, yes, we finally get the appearance of the second Gargantua, Sanda, or the brown Gargantua. And you can see right now he's not really happy. Everybody knows what this scene is from, or at least where this photograph is from, with Sanda holding that tree right here. You see what I'm saying? This is after basically Sanda has made an appearance in the film. He has found Gaira and saves him from being killed by the military. They go off into another area of the mountain range where they can be left alone. And basically after Sanda saves Akemi, he comes back to Gaira to check on him, and he sees basically Gaira has eaten on some humans, or he sees the evidence, the scattered clothes that basically Gaira has just finished munching down a human meal, and Sanda doesn't like that. So basically Sanda grabs a tree, whacks Gaira, and that basically sets off the war, or sets off the friction, or in Gaira's eyes, that makes Sanda from being an ally to basically a foe that he has to kill no matter what. And this moment really symbolized that basically both Gargantuas are a product of their environment, where Sanda is very, very tolerable and friendly towards humans and doesn't agree with what Gaira does. Gaira is a product of his environment. He grew up in the wild. He grew up, in the ocean where he had to fend for himself. Gaira's best interest, or Gaira's point of view, is all about him. He's very, very self-serving. He's very selfish. And that clash in personalities or their backgrounds leads to their friction and leads to their war. And basically both Gargantuas can't help to be who they are, which leads to their war. You see what I'm saying? But at that moment when Sanda sees Gaira and he's, just chilling after eating humans or whatever, it's like, Gaira looks at Sanda like, okay, what about it? I ate some food, whatever. See, in Gaira's mind, in Gaira's twisted mind, he does nothing wrong. But in Sanda's mind, he does do something wrong. And at that moment, when Sanda sees that and he realizes how evil and sadistic Gaira is, and now he has to stop him, or at least trying to put him in check, it just leads to their friction and leads to their war, which leads to the final photograph I want to showcase in this awesome book of Sanda vs. Gaira, which is this photograph right here. And yes, in this photograph, basically, it's the final climatic moments of the battle, of the war of War of the Gargantuas. And once again, that's another thing I love about this this fight scene here. Once again, great storytelling from Inoshiro Honda. Now, after in the mountains, when the Gargantuas have their initial friction, basically Gaira just runs away. He wants to get away from Sanda. Gaira pops back up in Tokyo, trying to find his next meal. Sanda comes in and intercepts him. And you would think that after they had a fight the first time that they would throw down again. But at this point, Sanda has calmed down, and he's trying to reason with Gaira. He's trying to tell him, like, look, let's not do this. Let's not fight. Let's just go away. Let's just get away from these people. Let's just find another peaceful way to resolve this issue. Gaira being twisted and just so antagonistic. Once again, he's not forgotten what happened earlier with Sanda. And once again, as I said, with that tree whacking situation, Sanda went from being an ally to a forever foe. So when Gaira sees Sanda, all he wants to do is continue where they left off in the mountains. And it took so much of Sanda not to give in to Gaira, because when Sanda's trying to reason with Gaira, Gaira is hitting him, he's punching him. He wants nothing to do with Sanda except to fight him. And there's a point in the film where Sanda gets close to Gaira, and Gaira hauls up and pushes him in the chest with enough force to send Sanda back into a building. And at that moment, Sanda looks at Gaira and gives him a look that says, you know what, that's it. I'm done. I'm done reasoning with you. I tried to the best of my ability. You don't want to listen, so obviously I'm going to have to fight you and deal with you and kill you to make you understand, which leads to an awesome fight scene. Once again, the best fight scene between these two films. Like I said, I love the fight between Baragon and Frankenstein, but to me, the Gargantuas fight scene just takes it to a whole nother level. And you see just basically the punches and the kicks and Gaira spearing Sanda into a building, and they body slam each other into buildings. It's just an awesome fight scene. And then it carries over into the bay, which leads them out to sea. And at that point, even though when they get into the water, you got to know that since Gaira was created in the water, he would have home field advantage. But Sanda at that point doesn't care. He was like, look, I don't care if you're born from the water. I don't care if you have home field advantage. I'm going to kill you in your own environment. You see what I'm saying? And it's really tragic. And then once they come across the volcano, the underwater volcano, and they get closer and closer, basically to their own doom, you realize that Sanda has made the choice that he has to die with Gaira for everything to be okay. And once again, you really feel for both Gargantuas in this film. Because once again, both Gargantuas are a product of their environment. Like I said, Sanda's very peaceful, so you feel for him. In a way, even though Gaira is the villain of this film, he does some really awful and heinous things, atrocious things in this film, he can't help who he is because he's a product of his own environment. He had to fend for himself in the dark, brutal ocean. Even though he's an evil creature, at the end of the day, he is still a creature. So you do kind of understand from a certain extent, even though you really more so are behind Sanda. But the fact that, once again, that both Gargantuas basically just kill each other, that their friction, that their clash in personalities really led to their demise. So really, at the end of War of Gargantuas, even though I'm happy that the film is awesome and all that good stuff, I really do feel for both Gargantuas. Even though it would have been nice for at least Sanda to live, to keep on living, but once again, he would have had a non-peaceful existence. You see what I'm saying? Because he did inadvertently spawn a Gaira, and he would have been persecuted for the rest of his life. On the other hand, we can't have a murderous monster like Gaira running around. So the outcome was perfect for these monsters. I just wish that we would have saw them in another film, quite frankly. But it's an awesome film. It's an awesome fight scene, and this photograph really shows that. You see what I'm saying? Just an awesome fight scene between both Gargantuas. You know, there are so many great fight scenes in these awesome films. More so in the Showa era. You have King Kong battling Godzilla. You have Godzilla fighting Mechagodzilla and Titanosaurus. You have Godzilla and Anguirus versus King Ghidorah and Gigan. You see what I'm saying? You have King Caesar and Godzilla fighting Mechagodzilla. And you have also this awesome fight scene here. You know what I'm saying? Now, my favorite fight scene out of all these films is the one from Godzilla vs. Gigan. But I have to say, I think this one, like the film overall being my second favorite kaiju film, I have to say this fight scene between Sanda and Gaira is like my second favorite fight scene too. But you can't go wrong with this book. Yes, yes, yes. Volume number 28, devoted to Sanda vs. Gaira, is an awesome book. Once again, if you're a fan of both these films, whereas Frankenstein Conquers the World or Sanda vs. Gaira, War of the Gargantuas, please get your hands on these books. They're available from the Godzilla store in Japan. Maybe you can navigate the Japanese site yourself and get them yourself, or you can find a middleman to help you out. Or I won't suggest go the eBay route because they're really more so expensive. You really get more bang for your buck if you try and get them through the Japanese website and try to find a middleman to help you out there. Either way, if you're a fan of Frankenstein Conquers the World or War of the Gargantuas, do not hesitate to get your hands on both these books. Yes, yes, yes. Volume number 47 devoted to Toho Frankenstein's Monsters, and volume number 28 devoted to Sanda vs. Gaira, also known as the War of the Gargantuas. So that's pretty much it with my book review of these two awesome books. I'm about to go watch both films right now. And you know what? Stay tuned to the very end of the video and you'll see what is coming up real soon on Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews. And now, you know what? I just got finished talking about a film from 1966, so I think my next review or my next video will be something from 1967. If you want to know what that is, please stay tuned to the very end of the video. But trust me, get these books. If you're a fan of these monsters, these films, or whatever, do not hesitate to get your hands on these books. You will not be disappointed. Yes, yes, yes. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. And I will see y'all again on this Figure Move review. All right? Y'all take it easy.